Crazy.
It took me 35 minutes
Okay,
to get
no
out
problem.
of downtown yesterday
Oh, but
because I just messed up, and everywhere I'd go, it was blocked off.
Not gonna make it after all.
Yeah, it was, I guess the acquisition is kind of throwing everything off. It's just 3rd day in the bank, so
Oh,
they're kind of underwater.
What new bank?
So we're ready to go, otherwise.
You should know these things. Okay, we ready,
yes, sir.
Raymond? Good morning. I'd like to call this September 13th meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board to order at 9:05 a.m. First item on the agenda, any public comment?
No,
Mr.
sir,
Tiz?
none received.
Okay, so item number 2 will be the adoption of minutes for the CRRMA board meeting of August 9th, 2017. If anybody's had a chance to review, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, motion passes. Item 3, update on activities related to the removal of tolls from the Cesar Chavez Express toll lanes. Mr. Tejas.
Good morning. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So this is a brief item. This is actually on the agenda because, as you'll recall, the legislation that Representative Pickett passed took effect on September 1. So I had committed to bring this item back in early September to brief the board on the process as we remove tolls. As you know, and as a reminder for the public, the RMA board at its August board meeting authorized and directed the suspension of tolls, so that is now in place. In fact, midnight of that date, we suspended tolls, so there are no tolls currently for the use of the Cesar Chavez managed lanes. Outside of that, the way that this, the unwinding of the toll facility is shaking out is really in 3 segments. The first one really deals with the integrator. This is the entity that the RMA engages to plan, develop, design, install, and operate and maintain the toll facilities for us. So our integrator is developing a plan right now to remove the sensitive equipment. So that's the readers, the cameras, the servers, and that sort of thing. Once we've removed that equipment, then TxDOT will come in, and this is the second component of it. TxDOT will come in and remove all of the remaining items. So that's anything that we've left behind, including the heavy infrastructure. They'll do the restripe. They'll remove the striping for the managed lanes. They'll place new striping to show that it's a non-toll. They'll remove all the signage and that sort of thing. TxDOT is currently in a procurement for a provider to do that removal. And I was told this morning that it looks as though in early October they should have somebody on board. They've already developed the plans for the removal, and I've received those yesterday, and we're looking through there to make sure we haven't missed anything, and to coordinate obviously with the integrator activities that we have. I'm hoping to have the integrator removal plan before the board either next month or the following month, so that we can begin those removals. And then again, as I mentioned, TxDOT will come in with the removal of everything else. And lastly, the third component, as we see it, is the review and really amendment or termination of all of the various agreements that are in place. It's a little bit complicated, as you can imagine, because while we have now become a toll entity with no toll facility, we do have a toll facility on the horizon. That's Border West Expressway. So part of this review requires careful thinking through of how what do we do with the integrator agreement that we've got in place, because we're going to have a facility up and running fairly soon. So that process is ongoing. Legal continues that review, and they're coordinating with TxDOT. As I understand it, they're coordinating with TxDOT as well on those various agreements. So those are really the 3 components that I kind of see the removal of the tolls as. And of course, once all of these components have happened, then we'll be back to the board for the formal termination of the toll on Cesar Chavez. So subject to your questions, that's all I have for you today on the Chavez item.
Any questions?
No.
Mr. Niemer?
One question. Is there signage up telling people that there's no tolls?
There is not. The signs are off. So if I remember correctly, actually, let me make sure that's correct. The signs are off, correct? But I don't believe that have we put any signs up saying that there's no toll?
Yeah.
So our general engineering consultant is saying that TxDOT said that they will put some up, and in fact, I'll coordinate with them to see if they have put something up. We've got some variable sign message boards up there, and we can place something if they haven't already.
Mr. Chair, just to
Mr.
let
Reyes.
you know, I drive it every day. There are no signs.
Okay, so they're just been turned off?
Right.
Okay, I can look at that, and I'll brief the board once I speak with TxDOT.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tejas.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is a presentation, discussion, and action on board resolutions authorizing the following change orders to the construction contract with the Paso del Norte Track Works as they relate to the El Paso streetcar project. A is change order number 20, modifications to various components of the overhead contact system, traction power substation. Item B is change order number 21. I guess I'll read them all. Completion of drainage and sidewalk items on Father Rom. Item C is change order number 22, completion of miscellaneous manhole items. Item D is change order number 23, installation of bicycle signage and striping on Oregon as requested and paid for by the city of El Paso. And item E, which is change order number 24, modifications to use of rebar at 4 intersections. Mr. Tejas.
Yes, sir. So what I thought we would do today is we've got Gil Gardner here, who, as you know, is the construction manager for us on the streetcar project. He's going to walk us through a PowerPoint that provides all the detail on each of these individual change orders. And then the last slide of the PowerPoint includes a little bit of background on the number of change orders that we've had. And that's because this is a unique project. We, the RMA, have not really had one quite like this. So seeing 24 change orders looks like it's a significant number, and it is, but for a project like this, it's really not. And I wanted to touch a little bit on that with you all. So we'll have Gil walk you through the change orders, and then I'll touch on the change order process for this project.
Good morning. I'm Gil Gardner, the construction manager for the streetcar project. As Raymond said, we have these 4 change orders here that I'd like to go through this morning. All right, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 change orders. Change order 20 is the modifications to the OCS foundations and TPS system for a total of $34,499.87. This change order here was for corrections that were made to the OCS pole and the traction power substations modifications here. On Father Rom, the OCS poles had been installed per the design plans, and then when the communications companies raised their lines, they didn't raise them up quite high enough. Rather than go back and fight with the communications companies for 6 months to get them to go back and raise them another thing, we elected to replace those poles with 30-foot high poles, and we had plenty of 28-foot high poles, so the contractor took out those poles, put in the 28-foot high. That way we had the clearance, and we didn't have to fight with the utility companies, the communications. Additional one on that is that we had a manhole or OCS pole on Santa Fe, which conflicted with existing conditions and had to be relocated. So we had to relocate the pole, including the foundation and everything. We had to furnish some new poles, or the contractor furnished some new poles at our direction to fit with the revised foundation design that had come up. And then we had to provide some extra material as transformer cabinets and circuit breaker box that were needed. And we wanted to do that so all of the TPSS stations would be uniform. And, you know, when they're doing the maintenance, they would have it right there. So in doing that, the total of that was about $34,499.87. The change order number 21.
Excuse me. Okay. If we can do these one at a time, I've got a question on change order 20 through the chair.
Sure.
Have we seen that order? I'm struck by the poles being the mismatch. Have we seen this before or no?
Yeah, the poles have standard heights, usually 28 or to 30 feet, and they come in standard heights. Because of the extension of the cantilevers, the optimal pole height was like 28.7 feet. They don't make a 28.7 foot pole, so they'd put in 30-foot poles. That's the standard height. Whenever we discovered that there was a potential, it wasn't a real conflict, but a potential conflict with the communications companies, because they had to be at least 18 inches difference in height, we had the systems engineer go back and take a look at it and see if we could accomplish the same thing. We're using 28-foot poles, so they did. They did an analysis, discovered by adjusting the cantilever a little bit, they could use the shorter poles, and that just allowed us to continue with construction without having to go back and fight with the utility companies. So that was the reason for it. The initial design was correct. I mean, it's a standard 30-foot pole, but we just had to go back to a shorter pole so we could avoid the conflict.
Are the 30-foot poles salvageable?
Oh, yeah. We just moved the pole
just moved them somewhere
over to
else.
a different site where we didn't have a height area. Oh, no, we didn't throw the poles away. We just took them from one area, put them in another area.
Okay, thank you.
Change order, any more questions on 20? Change order 21, this is one that, and actually is in two parts, the drainage improvements at the alley between El Paso and Santa Fe. Whenever the original design had been done, the street had been raised a little bit. It caused a ponding area there in that alley. And the solution to that was to actually kind of rebuild the driveway, the alley driveway there a little bit, and put a small drainage inlet to pick up that water. Then the second part of this one, and the major part of it, is the Father Rom sidewalk improvements, which had been requested by the city, the downtown business district, to go ahead and make the sidewalk improvements and replace the existing sidewalk. They provided the funds to do that, and in fact, they provided funds to do that. That was part of both this change order and a previous change order, where they had requested that we come back and put permanent paving in. So this is really a finalization of that, and this is additional work requested by the city, and they have funded it. Okay? Change order 22 is part of the communications level 3 manholes that we had to adjust. This was the final adjustment of them. For the level 3 communications manholes, we had to rebuild some manholes, primarily at Baltimore and Stanton. We had to put a handhole in at Santa Fe and Father Rom, and then we discovered 2 manholes on Stanton, down on Blanchard and Boston, that we had to adjust, or actually we had to bring aboard a specialty contractor to adjust it, because level 3 requires that we use their certified contractors, and that was the cost of those improvements. Those also, by the way, were funded under the budget allocation that we've had for communications, part of our initial budget allocation. It's not an additional scope. Change order number 23 is an addition to the contract at the request of the city. The city has requested and funded this change order, and this is to cover the costs. The city's asked us to, how do I back this up, Raymond?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah,
Didn't seem to work.
I know, I was just hitting the return bar so to get it to work, and I just accidentally, you guys bear with me.
Can we have IT come out and
Yeah.
help us out?
But anyway, the city had asked us to install bicycle sign stripes on Oregon because it's a combination of bicycle and roadway. So we've included that in the change order. And as he said, they're shared arrow signs. I had to ask what meant, but it's shared arrow signs and 20 new bicycle signs. They prepared the surface. They'll be assigning them there. And anyway, that is change order number 23. Change order 24 is the TxDOT rebar. This is for the concrete pavement on the TxDOT right-of-way project. The original design had used the city standard for the concrete pavement, which was number 4 rebars. When we got out there and started doing work, we recognized that it didn't meet the TxDOT standards. So we used a TxDOT standard, which is number 5 and number 6 rebar, which is about 2.5 times the amount of steel that was required that went into the pavement. These are the pavements on Paisano at Santa Fe, Paisano at Kansas, and then on Wyoming at Oregon and at Stanton. So that was the cost of that change order for the additional rebar in there. It was a significant amount of rebar that we had to increase.
I have a question.
Sure.
If we can go back. It's just out of curiosity. Okay,
Yeah.
So the rebar was already ordered for that job, right?
Yeah.
So what happens
To the rebar,
Yeah.
they were able to take it back and give us a break on the rebar.
Oh, okay.
In other words, the supplier took back the number 4s
Okay.
and just credited us on the number 4s.
Not trying to micromanage, just curiosity.
Yeah, no,
Thank
that
you.
was it. That's what they did.
Thank
We
you.
didn't have to pay for those. We would have no storage, you might say, so. But they did, they gave them credit for it. All right. And then, as a wrap up, on the budget impact of the change orders, the sum total of the change orders is $312,401.83, of which the change order number 21 for $199,000 is covered by additional city funds, and the change order 23, which is $21,200, is covered by additional city funds, which have already been, they've already been provided to us, haven't they? Not yet? Okay. But anyway, they've committed to providing those funds. The total cost of the change orders 1 to 24 at this time is $8,549,400. The project is still on schedule and it's still within the overall budget. And in fact, we're doing a punch list now, so we're wrapping the project up very, very quickly. So Raymond, you want to take the next slide?
Yeah, if I could actually to finish that thought though, the funds for the Oregon bike signs and stripes, change order number 23, those funds have not yet been received from the city. However, the funds have been received for change order number 21, which are the Father Rom drainage and sidewalk items. So just to put a finer point on it, if you could advance it to the final slide.
Right.
Gil, if you could advance it. Could you change the slide, please?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is what I had mentioned at the outset. What I wanted to do is talk a little bit about this type of project and kind of give you a feel for where we are in terms of the number of change orders, whether that's reasonable or not. The types of change orders I thought was really important to highlight to the board, because there's really, when you think of change orders, I normally think of unforeseen conditions where you didn't realize there was an unmarked utility, that sort of thing. However, what we've done in this particular contract is we're using change orders for anything that deviates from the contract. And there's different ways of dealing that. You could use what's called a force account. There are all sorts of different ways to deal with it. The way that we dealt with it was simply through using change orders. And in doing that, it's uniform and it makes sense. but I feel like I need to explain a little bit about the number and types of change orders that we've used so far. So to date, we have had 20. What is that? Well, actually, so those numbers are going to be a little different. The change orders there, you'll see the different types. Actually, let me start with that. I'm sorry, I'm a little all over the place. The types of change orders really are three types. There are unforeseen items, and that's what I normally think of, and what most folks normally think of when you think of a change order. Again, an example is a found utility that wasn't marked. Then you have anticipated items. These, in our project, the best example and largest example is the AT&T work along Stanton. We knew that there was going to be AT&T relocation expenses along Stanton. We just didn't know exactly what they were going to be or what that final solution was because of the timing in terms of when the design came and the funding came and that sort of thing. So we knew we were going to have expenses for AT&T, so those are part of what I consider anticipated items. We had budgeted for them, we just didn't know what they were going to be just yet. Then that third type of change order is for added work, and those are, for example, Cincinnati, the sign and stripes, bike sign and stripe additions that the city asked for, and that type of thing. So three different types of change orders. Really, though, again, in my opinion, the unforeseen items, that's really the true change order. So when you look at our contract, which had a base bid of $61 million, we've got change orders, true change orders with unforeseen items in the total amount of $1.4 million. That turns out to a percentage of about 2.3% of the total base bid, which is well below what most change orders come in at. In fact, Gil was telling me yesterday that the FTA normally shoots for change orders with projects of this type and of this nature. They're okay with change orders between 5 and 7%. So we are well below that. Now, again, though, when you add the anticipated items, then you've got another 6.28% of the total base bid. That's $3.8 million. And then finally, the added work adds $3.2 million, or another 5.3%. But again, that third column, that third type, the added work is entirely paid for by others. So that helps with that. So anyway, I wanted to give you that background. Oh, incidentally, let me note the change order, the number of change orders. We have, as Gil mentioned earlier, we have a total of 24 change orders. But when you look at the change order column there, when you add them up, it's actually more than 24. The reason for that is that some of the change orders are combined. So you've got some unforeseen along with some anticipated items and that sort of thing. So that hopefully helps explain that. So that's really all I had for you. I just wanted to explain that because, oh, incidentally, another thing too, I asked Gil to look at a couple of similar projects throughout the country to see where we were in terms of the number of change orders. Unfortunately, it's kind of difficult to compare the various projects because some are construction manager at risk. There are all sorts of different procurement types that you can use for actually constructing these projects. The most similar to us, it seems like, is the Tucson streetcar project, which was completed by a lot of the folks that are on our team as well. That project ended up with 146 change orders. We don't anticipate to be that high. I do anticipate coming back to you all with another handful of change orders, but we'll be well under 100 change orders. Another one that Gil looked at was the Portland streetcar. Again, a very different procurement type, but in that particular project, they had 121 change orders. So I think that we are well under the number of change orders that are normal for a project like this, and certainly the percentage of the base bid is well below what FTA deems acceptable. So I hope that that's helpful in terms of putting the number of change orders and the types of change orders we have in perspective. But obviously, I'm here to answer any questions should you have any. Otherwise, I would recommend approval of each of these items, which you can take at one time should you be interested.
Any questions? Okay, entertain a motion to approve. We can take them all together. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Tess? Okay.
Move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve change orders 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Okay, let's move on to item number 5. Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Number 5 is presentation, discussion, and action on board resolutions authorizing the following change orders to the construction contract with CMD Endeavors Incorporated as they relate to the Mission Ridge Boulevard Extension Project from the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. So A is change order number 9 regarding a water meter and electric transformer. And B is change order number 10 regarding various items related to the project closeout. Mr. Tejas.
Thank you. So today we have with us David Head, who is the program manager as part of our general engineering consultant team, and he's going to walk you through these 2 change orders.
Good morning, David Head with the GEC. So this is some change orders for the Mission Ridge Boulevard project for the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility. And they are just for the Mission Ridge Boulevard. See if I can do this right. So this is the map of where Mission Ridge Boulevard is on the mobility plan. It's the one in with the red big arrow there. It's between Pelicano and it currently dead ends before it and hasn't been extended all the way through to East Lake Boulevard. So these are the current change orders that we've had approved through the board, and you can see a list of those there. That's the first piece of the list, 1 through 5. And then 6 through 8. 8 was conditionally or was administratively approved, and we'll be bringing that back to the board probably this next month. So what we're talking about is change orders 9 and 10. Change order 9 was water meter charges to put in the water meter, reimburse the contractor for it, and then reimburse the contractor for the transformer to power the illumination and signal there at Pelicano and Mission Ridge Boulevard for $5,799.41. Any questions there? Change order number 10 is a cleanup change order for under and overruns for construction items. This is we're adjusting since this project is at the end of. We're trying to final out this project. These are the adjustments to the contract quantities that more reflect what was put out in the field to date. So that one is for $70,897.50. And there's a lot of items on that one, but I'll entertain any questions if you may have them.
Any questions of the board? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Item number 6 is discussion and action on board resolutions relating to the Pelicano Drive project from the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. Item A is the board resolution authorizing the chair to execute an interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso for design funds. And item B is the board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute work authorization number 3 with CEA Engineering Group for design services. Mr. Tejas?
Thank you. So as read into the record, this particular project deals with or is part of the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. As you know, with that program, the Regional Mobility Authority has partnered with the County of El Paso, whereby the county has authorized the RMA to issue debt and uses that debt then to design projects and construct projects. So this is the first step for the Pelicano project for us, and as you see under 6A, there is an interlocal agreement that is between the Regional Mobility Authority and the County of El Paso, whereby the county would authorize the RMA to use up to $1,965,422.17 for the design component of the Pelicano Drive project. So that's the first item. And I should mention too, I received back some comments from the county attorney's office yesterday with 3 minor revisions, but I thought I'd read them into the record so you're aware of them. One of them deals with the way that we have worded the language dealing with the funds that we will utilize to complete the design. there was the addition of the term combined. And what that refers to is when we look at vehicle registration fee, bond issuance number 1 and bond issuance number 2, together they collectively provide the RMA with over $106 million in proceeds. So the county wanted to just clarify that it was 106 combined proceeds. The second revision, minor revision, is that Public Works has moved offices from room 417 to room 200. So we've made that note in the notices section. And the third and final minor revision is that we've added the county. The county has contract numbers for each of its agreements, and we've added that contract number into the footer of the agreement. So with those 3 minor revisions, the rest is as provided as part of your backup. So I'm here with a recommendation to approve, subject to your questions. Although while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and touch on item 6B as well. And that is the companion agreement, and that is the agreement between the Regional Mobility Authority and the design firm CEA Engineering Group, which is a local firm, and they will actually complete the design for the Pelicano Drive project. So again, we enter into an interlocal with the County of El Paso, who provides us the design funds, access to the design funds, and then we enter into an agreement with the design firm, CEA in this case, to actually pursue the design. So subject to your questions, I'm recommending approval of both items 6A and B.
Are there any questions of the board on these items?
I have a question. Mr. Tejas, CEA Engineering will be doing the design services, and how was CEA selected?
So, if you recall, some time ago, I want to say probably a couple of years now, the Regional Mobility Authority went out for almost an on-call process where we interviewed, I'm not going to remember now, but a number of engineering firms, and we selected 4 of them, and they became part of our on-call group. So what we do when we have comprehensive mobility plan projects, or even, for example, the very next item is another engineering firm. When we have design requirements, we go to that on-call list. And in fact, actually, it's a timely question because each of the firms have now received at least 2 agreements, 2 design agreements. So we once we approve the next one, which hopefully, and I'll touch on it in the next item, but we hope to be back before you next month with another design agreement. Once we complete that, we'll be putting together another on-call procurement, so that we'll be back to you with another list. And that's because, again, as I mentioned, we have 4 engineering firms on that on-call list, so we need to rotate them out. Each of them have received at least 2 contracts to date.
And it's by, how are they chosen? These 4 is just the next one up, the next one up,
Correct.
the next one up.
Yes, sir. So the 4 go through an evaluations-based selection, and then they're put into the list, and then we dole them out by order.
Okay. And in the backup, I noticed there was a budget, and CEA is the one that prepared that budget. And so they've done the preliminary design, I presume. Is that correct?
No, sir. So they put together the budget. They work with our engineering firm, our general engineering consultant to review that budget, tweak it, change it, add scope, remove it, that sort of thing. And then our general engineering consultant team consults with the county to make sure that they're comfortable with that fee. And that's how the numbers come about.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 6, interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso for design funds, and item B, work authorization number 3 with CEA Engineering Group for design services. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion passes. We're going to move on to item 7. Discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute work authorization number 2 with AECom for design services on the State Loop 375 Frontage Road Ramps project. Mr. Tejas?
Thank you. So I have one more PowerPoint for you, and that's because this project, you may recall, it's been before the board for several years now, and it's actually morphed into a different project. So I thought it might be useful to provide a PowerPoint to help keep you all up to date. So what we're really talking about is what's now referred to as the State Loop 375 Frontage Road Ramps project and State Loop 375 Main Lanes Widening project. So it's 2 projects. Originally, TxDOT provided funding to the Regional Mobility Authority several years back to complete the preliminary engineering and the environmental services for what was then known as the Americas Managed Lanes project. That project, as you may recall, was the original extension of the Cesar Chavez Express toll lanes. What we were intending to do was place additional toll lanes to the inside of Loop 375 from basically Zaragoza, port of entry, which is where Cesar Chavez ended, and then run it up close to or perhaps beyond I-10 on the far east side. So we've engaged Brown and Gay Engineering Company to develop that preliminary engineering and environmental. As we were developing that project, as you know, Cesar Chavez, the toll lanes have been removed. There have been other additional projects that TxDOT has looked at in the area. So TxDOT actually provided the Regional Mobility Authority with additional funding along the way to expand the preliminary engineering and environmental services that was being provided by Brown and Gay for the Americas Managed Lanes project to actually look at additional frontage roads and some braided ramps in that same section of 375, basically between Zaragoza and I-10. So TxDOT expanded our scope with Brown and Gay, and we've been working on that to date. TxDOT recently has also provided funding for the design projects that will come from the environmental that is being developed by Brown and Gay. So essentially what is happening is that the Americas Managed Lanes preliminary engineering and environmental has now expanded to include the main lanes and the frontage roads and braided ramps. That environmental is being completed by Brown and Gay. And then once they're complete, then there will be design work for two particular projects, and that is the main lanes and the frontage road and braided ramps. So TxDOT has provided the funding for that as well. So to put that, to show that visually here, what this is that section of Loop 375. So what you see in green, those are the main lanes, the original main lane project, which again is just expanding the main lanes to the center. That is now referred to as State Loop 375 Main Lanes Widening Project. And then in blue and red, those are that's the frontage road ramps project. So in blue, that's what is being added. So if you look at the segment up on the top right-hand corner, you'll see the blue that is adding frontage lanes that will now cross the UP railroad line. Currently, there are turnarounds and you cannot cross that unless you're actually physically on 375. So this is a big project for the area because we're actually adding frontage roads across the UP lines. Everything in red then are existing ramps that come on or off of 375, and those are being reversed in certain cases, and braided ramps are being added as well. So that's in blue. The red are going away and the blue are being added. So when you look then at the green, that again is the main lanes widening project, and everything in blue or red, that's what's happening under the frontage road ramps project. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Here's a little bit of detail, a little bit more detail on the agreements that we've entered into to date. So again, as I mentioned, the Americas Managed Lanes Preliminary Engineering and Environmental Agreement, that is between the Regional Mobility Authority and Brown and Gay, and that's for a total of $1.9 million. Again, that has been revised to include the frontage road ramps. Then the second agreement then, and that's what you have before you today, is item number 7. That's the State Loop 375 Frontage Road Ramps Design Services. So that next step. We are proposing to go with AECOM. As we discussed under the last item, AECOM was selected under our pre-approved list. And the negotiated amount, which has been negotiated between our general engineering consultant, ourselves, and AECOM, and then was forwarded for review and approval by TxDOT. That amount is $2.3 million, and you see that in the backup for item number 7. And then hopefully next month, we are currently in negotiations with an engineering firm to develop the actual main lanes widening design work. So that's in negotiations right now, and we'll hope to be back to you next month for that item. So subject to your questions, then hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully I didn't muddy the waters further. If not, then I would recommend approval of item number 7.
Any questions of the board? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, I believe that concludes our agenda for today. This
Yes,
is
sir.
a quick one.
Yes, sir.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Tejas.
Thank you.
Oh, meeting is adjourned at 9:44 a.m.
Thank you.
This is a record today.